Happy Sabbath, Brinklow family. During these times of uncertainty and social and political unrest, ever thought about how it impacts Adventists in those cities and in those states? Well, today, for our Public Affairs Spotlight, we're going to be having a candid conversation with Adventists in the battleground states of the election debacle. Joining me for that conversation are Adventists in North Carolina, Georgia, and in Michigan. We have with us today, joining the Brinklow family and the conversation, Pastor Denry Wright. He's the pastor of the Battle Creek Berean Seventh-day Adventist Church and Trinity Temple's Seventh-day Adventist Church in Michigan. Thank you for being with us here at Brinklow.
Thank you for having me.
We also have with us Attorney Willie Davis. He's joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. He's an Adventist who's very active on the ground, and we're going to talk more about how engaged he is right now in this election and in past elections. Thank you so much for being with us, Attorney Davis.
Thanks for having me.
And also we have joining us Attorney Phil Creary Jr. joining us from North Carolina. Thank you so much, Attorney Creary, for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with each of you. So please feel free to jump into the conversation, make a comment or a question, and let's just have a good time just talking about what's going on with Adventists in these battleground states. So I'm going to first throw out a general question to each of you. What's going on the ground with Adventists in Georgia, in North Carolina, in Michigan? How are Adventists feeling about casting ballots? Many of, I'm sure, your church members and your friends cast a ballot, and now it's in question. What's going on? We can just go around to each of you. Phil, let's start with you. Tell us what's going on in North Carolina, because the president tweeted Thursday, what is going on in North Carolina? Why have you not declared a president yet?
Situation in North Carolina is that the ballots that were mailed in the early voting tabulation are allowed to be reviewed until November 12th, meaning that people who have mailed in ballots that were postmarked before the election but have not yet been counted have up until that time for them to be reviewed. So that's the primary reason for the delay. It's a 2-point differential right now. The presidential race looks like Trump will carry the state. But the larger issue is the reduction of polling places where people who vote in person expediently, which caused a great bottleneck. So they're dealing with that, as well as the mail-in ballots due to the pandemic, them being on the increase. So those are the primary reasons for the slow counting of the vote in North Carolina.
All right, and how are your Adventists, your church family members feeling about this? What's the talk in the church about what's going on in North Carolina?
Strangely silent and apathetic. Unfortunately, most of the churches around here have been reduced in terms of attendance due to the pandemic. But even before that, people pride themselves on being apolitical.
Wow.
Meaning that they don't want to discuss pertinent political issues. They see getting into the mire of politics is somehow beneath them. It's not a view that I share, but many of the white conservative churches are happy to ride on the coattails of evangelicals and others and let them take the forefront in terms of these pressing national issues. And those that are willing to speak out are few and far between. So unfortunately, the church really doesn't have much of a presence except for to co-sign some of the larger evangelical concerns, which has a support of President Trump around the range of about 70%.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see if the same thing is going on in Georgia. Attorney Davis, what are you getting from your fellow church members? Are you feeling like people are being anxious about the votes they cast? What's going on in your church family?
I think most people, for the most part, they just want this election to be over. And I think that Adventists are probably not that much different than what we hear in society. And I guess, I've been involved in politics for some years. And I think our involvement and our concern has changed from what it might have been 10, 15, or even 20 years ago. So people do talk about issues, that they do understand the importance, that they do, have discussions, that when you're talking about Supreme Court nominee and majority of the, I guess, justices on the court being Catholic. So that sort of brings some interesting conversation for them. But most people realize that politics does make a difference in their everyday life. So, I mean, they're involved and they talk about it and they're turning out to vote. But for the most part, everybody just want this to be over.
All right. Now, Pastor White, you are the pastor of two churches in Michigan. Tell us what you're hearing from your church members. Are you finding that most of your members are anxious, or maybe they don't care what's going on in the election? But tell us what you are feeling right now or hearing right now from your church members.
Once again, thanks for having us. It's a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion. I could speak more for the younger generation, the millennials and the generation Zs. A lot of them just started. Some of them are first-time voters. Some of them missed the last one because they were 17, and they're frustrated. They're saying, like, this is what we did this whole hoopla about. We got all excited, and now, we don't know who's the president. And so I feel that there's going to be some backlash, 4 years from now, with this particular group that's voted for the first time. They may not even want to be involved. A lot of us older folks, the millennials and Generation X's, the older ones, we remember when Al Gore and Bush too, when this occurred, something like this, and like a lot of us stopped voting. Not necessarily myself, but when we were trying to rally and campaign people to come out and vote, some of them were not interested in because of what happened to the year 2000. But we got them voting, and now this occurred. So, a lot of people are just frustrated. It's like, okay, just give us a president. Let's just make this fair. Let's just make this happen. Let's move on with our lives. Some people are excited that it's Biden. And of course, you have others who are, well, not necessarily my church, but the other churches who are not pleased that if it's Biden.
You're making some good points about the impact that this could have for future elections, not just in the Adventist church, but across denominations, right? And even in the secular community. I want to go back to Attorney Davis. Right now, all eyes are on Joe Biden, right, to usher in change. But also, there is a Black Christian clergy that could really change the course of this nation. All eyes are on Georgia and that Senate runoff election with a pastor, a clergy who stepped forward, who said, I believe God can use me in public service. And I'm talking about none other than Reverend Raphael Warnock. Now, you are, as a Christian, as Seventh-day Adventist Christian, you plan to help him to make that difference. Tell us tell us some more about that.
I intend to help him and also the other Democratic candidate, Harper, because, we have a very, very unique situation that we actually have a runoff and we have both of our seats up. One is for the full-time seat and one is the remaining term for a senator that retired. So, I plan on going out and helping. I have people that's calling now that they want to make a difference. And part of that is you have we've never had a Black candidate this close in a runoff. So that's something important. And Reverend Warnock, he's talking about issues. So we're no longer, I noticed in Georgia, we're no longer in the spot of thinking like, well, I'm an Adventist and I can't support this person because they're a denomination. So nobody is looking at that because the issue is not about, denomination issues, but that used to be a problem in the past. So we intend to, get out, help him, and also John Osford, because we realize that, and everybody's looking at Georgia, we realize that if we can get these two seats, that would somewhat give the Senate basically give Democrats somewhat control of the Senate. I think it would probably be a 50-50 tie. with the Democratic president and the vice president having the tie breaking, that would make Chuck Schumer the majority leader instead of Mitt McConnell.
All right, now you actually ran for office a few years ago. Tell us why, as a Seventh-day Adventist, you decided to run for office in Atlanta, Georgia, when there are still Adventists who feel like we shouldn't be involved in politics. You know, I was just on a conference call the other day, and an Adventist attorney, mind you, said Adventists shouldn't vote, according to Ellen G. White. So tell us why you decided that you wanted to run for office a few years ago.
Well, I mean, I never thought about my religious background factoring into and whether or not to run or anything like that. I've always, I mean, and even with running, I've always had, I guess, a difference that I did not campaign on the Sabbath, but I still thought that it was nice to run for office. And I had a lot of people in the church that was, you know, supportive. Like I said, I've noticed a change in the church. Before that, if somebody running for office came to church, they're like, hey, just sit down and maybe you can wait later. And now there are many occasions where a pastor may recognize that person that comes in and also allow that person. I never felt that as a major issue, and I guess it's somewhat similar, and I'm using those that may know. It's just like, John Kennedy was a Catholic, and you don't think about that.
Yeah.
But I believe in what I believe in. I don't think that changing. I was never running to try to convert anybody to a certain ideal of belief. I thought, I was basically running because I thought I could make a difference in the community, and I didn't see a factor saying, okay, as an Adventist, I'm not. And I just really think that there's changing. I think that we've had some well, not issues, but I want to say that with the Black Lives Matter, that we had a lot of our young people in church that were in Atlanta, were going down there on the Sabbath, that was marching, that participated.
And
But
that's
at the same time,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I
But
was,
at the same time, I think you had conference officials that didn't think that was a good thing to do, and I think that even some pastors that were out downtown marching, and some of this was taking place on the Sabbath. And I think some of those who were involved, they was like, "Hey, this is the good thing for us to be involved. We can't sit on the sideline while we have young black men dying and not take an active part or anything like that."
let me,
A change in the church.
yeah, let me bring in Attorney Davis, Attorney Creary in North Carolina. What about what Attorney Davis just said about how you found that there were quite a few Adventists who were marching for Black Lives Matter, and they're more engaged now? What is going on in North Carolina? What about your church or in your state? Were you finding that members in your church community were marching? Did you participate in the march? Speak to us about what's going on there.
Not to my knowledge. Some of the black churches have had some participation with some of the marches, but I would not say they were church affiliated. They just happened to be members of those constituencies and then participated. But I do think there is a general reluctance to participate openly in politics. And my contention would be we either participate directly and forthrightly, or people participate for us.
Right.
Many other denominations are very explicit about their support for their various causes, and they conflate religious liberty with government involvement, meaning that they want the government to advocate for what they consider to be Christian positions in the service of religious liberty. But of course, many Adventists should understand that we are considered religious minorities, both on the Sabbath issue and other related issues. And so what may be good for the general evangelical community may not necessarily be good for our practice. So I would say that not only do we need to be informed, but we need to participate at some level, because if we don't, people will participate on our behalf, and we may not like the outcome.
I appreciate those points you just made. Pastor White, what do you say? What, as a pastor, are you, what are you telling your members who might want to be engaged in politics? I can see from your T-shirt that you're sending a strong message, Democratic Party, Republican Party, or Pizza Party. I think I know which one a lot of us would want right now. But tell us, as a pastor, should Adventist Christians be engaged in politics?
Of course, for us to lie to ourselves, keep lying to ourselves and say not to be involved with politics, it's like you're disconnecting yourself from the world, from society. When the Adventist Church started, the Adventist Church was actually heavy into dealing with political agenda. When alcohol was illegal, the Adventist Church was heavy in, banning alcohol. Other issues. It's not until like around the 40s, 1940s, did the Adventist Church start to disconnect themselves, sad to say, around the civil rights era. So we like to pick and choose what areas we want to be involved with. And, as a pastor, it is nauseating, when I hear people misquote Sister White, Ellen White. I think she's the most misquoted person besides Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
She did not say that we should not vote. Actually, she said the opposite. She said we should be involved in these matters. As a Christian, we should represent the character of Jesus Christ in these matters. What she said was that we should not publicize one party over the other. We should not, get involved in that area. But voting, she actually said, it's our God-given right, and that we should be involved. It's our duty to humanity. And I'm paraphrasing there. And so it's sad when I hear Adventists want to say this, specifically when it comes to minority issues like systematic racism. But they won't say that when it comes to abortion. So they'll band together. And I'm speaking specifically for a group here. They'll band together against pre-murder, pre-life murder, but they won't band together against murder when somebody's adult or innocent. But one case we did did march at Andrews University, and I was very proud. At my alma mater at Andrews University, we marched there when we were doing the whole after George Floyd. We got together, and the whole city of Barron Springs. We were out there in numbers, professors that I never thought were concerned or about our issues as Black people. They were there marching with signs, banners. People yelling, screaming, Black Lives Matter. We knelt down for 8 minutes and change, So that really felt good, and it impacted the city of Barron Springs to say, wow, these Adventist people really care. So when we talk this talk and disconnect ourselves from these world issues, we're supposed to be not of the world, in the world, but not of the world. We do live here. So these things do affect us. So our voice must be heard as a Christian organization.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Black Lives Matter March. Attorney Davis, go ahead.
I also serve as the Sabbath school leader for our children and our youth. And we've been having a lot of Zoom meetings, and then I've had other study groups. So let me just put this in perspective when we talk about Adventists in politics. And just give you some names to think about where Joseph was. That was somewhat a political position. You can think about where Ezekiel was. That was a political position. And last night we talked about Nehemiah.
Yeah.
And, okay.
Exactly.
And I told them last night, so let's think about this. Why are all of these good people who serve God in these good relationships where they're in the palace, these non-believers? And in each instance, because when we talked about Nehemiah, it's like, okay, the king says to him, well, what's wrong? And he said, hey, we're not able to do what we need to do to rebuild Jerusalem. And the king said, what do you need?
Yeah.
And based on that relationship, the king said, what supplies do you need? And Nehemiah said, I even need some, we're going through some dangerous places, so we may need some guards too. And he provided that to them for them to get the material that they needed to take to Jerusalem and rebuild the city. So
I thought
I just think that's interesting. They were, here are people that were Christian, that they were in position, and it didn't change them, but it kept them focused. And there was a benefit to their people.
You know, I thought about Nehemiah as you were saying that. I thought about Nehemiah and Ezra and how God used them to build back better. Get the pun? Biden, build back better? Because that's in essence what they were doing, right? Building back better. You know, Attorney Creary, looks like you want to jump in and say something here. Because even when we were talking, Pastor White was talking about Black Lives Matter, there are Adventists, I don't know if you've seen videos of Adventists saying that we shouldn't be involved with Black Lives Matter because it's witchcraft and so we shouldn't march. And they even called out Andrews University, Pastor White. But Phil Creary, it looks like you want to say something. Jump in right here.
It's really interesting to me as Pastor White was speaking that many people who would clearly be in favor of abolition now, who would be against slavery now, based on the premise of what they're saying, would be silent today.
Yes, sir.
Those that are proponents of Oakwood College don't know why it is that Oakwood had to be established because of the tremendous racial strife and the particular needs of the so-called Negroes at the time would remain silent today. And so the needs are different, but the issues remain the same. The issues of equality, the issues of racial reconciliation, the issues that we as church and as people are dealing with are still pertinent to the church, and nothing in the Word of God precludes us from participating to our utmost to enhance the freedom of other people and of ourselves. And this is a very, very dangerous view, in my opinion, to use politics as a catch-all for non-participation. Again, I'll reiterate what I said before. If you don't participate, you're giving your vote by proxy to somebody else to decide for you. There is no such thing as being apolitical. It's only whether or not you will take the initiative and make the best determination you can, or allow someone to do it for you. So I think the history of the church is very, very replete with examples, Ellen G. White included, of taking stands on racial issues way before it was in the mainstream. And I think that's something that's commendable to do, not just in racial, but in gender issues and a whole host of other things.
Homer, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I bet you if you put on the ballot, should we arrest people who keep another day besides Sunday for worship? I bet you Adventists will get involved then.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
Just
You're just saying, right? I'm just saying. Well, we're almost out of time, so let's give some final thoughts on what do you think? Where do you think these illegal challenges will go in your states? Because the Republicans and the Trump administration, the Trump campaign rather, is actually challenging the votes in each of your states. What are your final thoughts on this election that we have been going through for months? And here we are. We have not yet had certain people to accept this election. What do you think? You think there will be any success?
Say certain people.
I'm talking about Republicans. So do you think the Republicans
I
will be
think-
successful in changing your state? Or you think, what do you say?
I don't think I don't think that it's going to change any of the states. I think of the remaining states, that the only state that Trump may win would actually be North Carolina. So still, I think right now, I think last that I looked, he was about at 217. It's not enough. I mean, Georgia can take his time, and I think Arizona and whatever, but it is not going to change the number. He's already at 279. So it's basically a waste of time. And I don't, but it's just amazed that Republicans will not say, hey, this is a waste of time. But they are also looking at, hey, the president received 72 million votes. So we need that, and I think that's one of the things that's going to affect what's going on in Georgia, that those Republican candidates are trying to look and see what Trump could do. But I don't think I don't think Trump's going to be in Georgia campaigning, because he's mad. He's lost. So since he's lost, he's not going to do anything for anybody. There's no benefit for him.
You think the Supreme Court might accept the case? You think he has it? You don't
Nobody's
think?
going to keep wasting their time. We need to move forward.
All right, Phil Carey, what do you say?
I concur with that analysis, Mr. Davis. I think this is a desperate attempt by a desperate man, by people who follow him desperately. I think the foundational legal arguments are without merit. I think at some level there may be some small claims of fraud, as there are at every election, isolated cases and incidents. But by and large, overturning what may be amounting to 306 electoral college votes over 5 or 6 different states, some of them run by Republican secretaries of state, at the end of the day will come to naught. But the point is for him to sow this discord and maintain this momentum with this group of people that follow him abjectly and blindly, and for him to transfer that into some type of monetary or political power going down the road. That's his true objective. And we're blind if we don't understand that. But as far as the merits of any case that could overturn the election, I don't see it.
All right, and Pastor White, you have the final word here.
It's sad that this is going on, and like I said, for the young people who this is their first time, venturing into politics, it could be discouraging. So I hope, for those young people listening at your churches and local churches, whether SDA or not, just this is part of the game. But keep being faithful to God, keep pressing on, keep studying, doing your own research. I personally, I don't vote for parties, I vote for policies. So I look at the agendas of both sides and see what's best, that I see for my house. That's all I can govern, my house and my city, and my state. So just be encouraging to our people, just keep trusting God. We know that these things are going to happen. He said in the last days, these things shall be happening. But this is part of Trump and his few public Republican puppets that they love distraction. They love distraction. And when January comes, somebody's going to have to drive a U-Haul, and it's not going to be the new president. It's going to be the old president. So, I'll be glad to drive this U-Haul for him.
Thank you all for being with us and for sharing your views. As we were talking about why it's important for us as Christians to be engaged, I certainly agree with each of you that we should really focus on the issues, not particularly a candidate or be loyal to a party, but think about what issues that they stand for. Are they biblical? And I want to encourage even people who are becoming anxious and fearful about this political unrest, that while we certainly want to see certain candidates in office, that our hope is in the Lord. And I was actually thinking about Psalm 146, where he talks about put not your trust in humans, put not your trust in chariots, but our hope is in the Lord. Take a look at that psalm. It is very encouraging. And so I want to leave you all with that note. Until next time, for our next public affairs segment, I thank each of you for joining us all the way from your battleground states. God bless everyone. Happy Sabbath.
Thank you. God bless.